Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Well, if last week was any form of a showcase of what Gen 3 is going to be with these supercars in your Supercars Series, then let's head to one of the most iconic supercars tracks out there. It is high pace, it is high octane, it is Phillip Island, and it is the second round of your Supercars Series. This is where you've got to try and showcase what you're all about, because everybody knows in iRacing C-Class Supercars Series running that this is a track which every driver should know very, very acutely, and it's going to take every trick in the book to get up to the top. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone watching around the world. My name is Jake Sperry, and I've got Reese Gardner along with me today for all of your action. Jay Kennedy on production as we get things sorted, bringing things to you with SimSpeed TV and, of course, with iRacing as well. And Reese, what a track to go to here in round two. It's one where everybody knows that the speed stays high and the opportunities to overtake you need to be a little bit coy about.
Phillip Island is one of the most historic circuits, not only in the real world, but in iRacing as well. It was the first Australian track to be added to the service, and man, this place is just incredible. Home of the Australian Motorcycle Grand Prix since 1989. It is fast. That's what you have to think about at this place. That's basically it. It's the fastest circuit in Australia. It does have quite a few heavy braking zones, particularly at Duel and MG, also at Siberia as well at turn 6. You can hold the outside around there, but this track is largely about mid-corner speed, making sure that you get the car rotated, Sperry. And I think this is a track where the downforce differences between Gen 2 and Gen 3 really show.
Yeah, it really will do. You're looking around Miller Corner, Jack Miller Corner, turn 4. It's going to be probably one of the best places to get the pass done. And also over the top of the hill at Lukey Heights, down into the MG Corner at turn 10. That's also going to be a place where we are expecting a lot of great overtaking to find itself in play. But this is going to be an important season for everybody to stack themselves up and ready with, because we are getting ourselves situated with this second round. Last week was an almighty tussle between Cody Deeth, Richie Stanaway, and as well Madsen Down. You can see Cody Deeth with the victory at Watkins Glen. This is our season calendar and where we stack up. You talk about where we're going. You've got Phillip Island, the Navara Speed Circuit, and then over towards Brands Hatch there for round 4 of the championship. So these next 3 rounds important, and that's how your championship standings look after round 1. Madsen Down with the 1 points advantage by taking home the split a little bit earlier on before Richie Stanaway and co.
Exactly. Super close championship standings at the top, but that's exactly what you'd expect from a field like this and the quality of drivers that we see. The real-world drivers really jump into this one. Stanaway and Brody Kostecki as well. Magnificent to see them a part of this series. But I'm particularly looking forward to the tussles between the sim racers here. Brady Myers and Jake Maloney, separated by quite a bit there comparatively for third place. But aside from that, everything's still up for grabs. It's still really early in the season. We've got plenty more weeks of racing still to come.
And you got to remember as well, with the iRacing Championship, it is best 8 of 12. There are 4 drop rounds in the season. Qualifying is 8 minutes long. There are 2 laps available to set a time. And then your race. It's 30 laps worth of distance, so about 133.5 kilometers long. And a pit stop between laps 8 and 22 we are expecting. And that is going to be for fuel. So keep an eye out on how that all plays out in the long and the short as we get ourselves ready to go nearer towards qualifying. It is going to be an all-important battleground here today because everybody is trying to step up and say, this is what I'm all about, this is my pace, this is the level that I've got. But really here, Reese, when it comes to Gen 3, it's a slightly different style. These drivers are still trying to find their feet with what works and what doesn't work out there. And what we understood from last week, especially with Cody D, is that this car does drive differently to Gen 2, and that means that some drivers are going to profit from it and others are going to struggle.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think a lot of the more experienced drivers in the field, the ones that are consistently at the top of the Supercars series, both official and hosted, are able to have a bit of an easier time adapting to these cars. But like I mentioned at the top of the show, it's the reduction in downforce that really shows up in these cars, especially around a circuit like this. I jumped into a practice session earlier today to prepare for this broadcast. I was 2 seconds off the pace, so maybe my words aren't as legitimate, but what I did feel was the downforce, the understeer. It's so easy to overdrive these cars into the corners, and around a circuit like Phillip Island where there's so many quick turns, you need that front end grip. You need to try and set the car up on that aggressive front end, get the rear end a little bit loose. It's all about rotation through the corner here, and Madison Down will be showing us exactly how that's done right.
Yeah, he certainly will be giving a wonderful showcase of that as he now moves through the middle sector of the lap and moves on through this fast and flowing section through the Hayshed corner in this right. You can see he's really trying to kick on through. 27.4 in the second sector, up over the top of Lukey Heights. You're trying to hug the left-hand side curve as much as you can and making sure that you drop down the hill and attack at MG. Gravity is against you and it is the toughest braking zone out here on the circuit. 2 final corners then to transfer to get to the end of the lap at turns 11 and 12. And for Madison Down making his charge over towards the line, we'll see what sort of representative time this will be in the Trans-Tasman Racing Machine, driving it on forward, and hopefully this will be a benchmark. We saw 37s in practice, and that's a 132.5 that we've got out there. So the first real lap in anger, which is eclipsed by 200th by Cody D.
And immediately eclipsed again by Jared Philsell, who gets into the 132.4s. We have Ian Guven joining us for this one, driving a Mustang, the number 18. Be interesting to see how he matches up against the pros in this car, against and amongst the Aussies. Out of the final corner for him, or just catching a tiny bit of the grass on the exit of the final turn, but that's okay. You don't get an off track unless you go a little bit further off than that. 133.2 for Guven, currently good enough for 12th place. You'll see that he's immediately going to reset and go for another lap, because one characteristic that has carried over from Gen 2 here is that the tires are good for the first lap, and that's about it when it comes to lap time.
Well, it all depends on track temperature, because right now it is at 39 degrees. Track temperature, winds are howling today at Phillip Island. 35 kilometers an hour from the east. Ross Rizzo now looking to make his charge to the line in the number 27 car, and he will not get a time in with his first lap, so that one won't count. He'll have to go again and make that happen. Hank Guven, by the way, Bathurst 12-hour champion. Shows you how strong this field is when you've got champions left and right. Kostecki, for example, the 2023 Supercars champion out there at the moment. And there is Brody Kostecki looking to go on to his flying lap in the number 3 car, dancing it down into the southern loop and trying to hold as much as he can with as classic of a Mustang as you can find.
Yep, Kostecki moving over to the Mustang in the virtual world as well as in real life, signing a contract this year with Dick Johnson Racing to go forward in the real life Supercars Championship. So he switched over from General Motors to Ford. Let's see if that brings him any extra pace. Of course, these cars are pretty much identical. Doesn't matter which model you drive, you're going to be able to get the same out of it. But it will be interesting to see what Kostecki can do here versus this field. He has obviously a lot of track time in the sim as well as real life, so he knows how these cars work, and through Hayshed he is looking as aggressive as any. You see just a little kick out of the rear end there through Hayshed. That's one of the places where you have to lift off a little bit in these cars. In previous generations you could go flat out through Hayshed without a care in the world, but you got to take a bit more care in these things.
You absolutely do, and this is where Brody Kostecki will be looking to feather that throttle and really get that launch now through towards the final corner. A 32.4, the time to beat. You've got drivers like Josh Anderson, who's got himself in fourth. Brady Myers up inside the top 5. The top 10 is at a 33 flat, with Wayne Burke being that driver who holds that 10. That is a 32.3. Oh. That is a wonderful time by Brody Kostecki, and it is good enough for pole at the moment. He has put an absolute showcase on, but you've got drivers like Josh Horton, who's looking to try and put a time in, and you've also got this guy who looked pretty good last time out, Richie Stanaway.
Indeed, Stanaway coming up to the final corner now. Hasn't been able to get a lap in so far, but with 1 minute remaining on the clock, this is going to be his last opportunity to see if he can get provisional pole position here. A 32.7, that's going to be good enough for 11th place, it seems. Just outside the top 10 for Richie Stanaway. That leaves Joshua Horton here for Vermilion Esports, the only driver yet to set a time. But there's 45 seconds on the clock. He'll definitely be able to get to the line.
Well, Stanaway will be disappointed with that in terms of a lap time. He's only 4/10 off the pace, but that's not good enough for a top 10. Horton then in the number 29 car. He is the last driver on iRacing to get into this field, and as he crosses the line, he puts a 1:32.9 on the board, and that puts him 7th row of the grid. Then he'll go 13th fastest with that time, and that will set the field outright for racing here at Phillip Island in your second round of the championship. Just want to remind you all that it is iRacing holiday sale. It continues on until the 5th of January, and you absolutely want to jump in on that because you can give the gift of sim racing this year. It's 50% off any new iRacing membership by heading to iRacing.com/holiday sale. Let's take a look at your starting grid. It's Brody Kostecki on the pole position. He'll have Jared Philsell alongside for company on that front row. Your winner from last time out, Cody Deeth, he starts third with Madison Down in fourth position, the number 1 on iRacing. Joshua Anderson and Brady Myers make it an all-Trans-Tasman third row of the grid as Jake Maloney makes it 4 in 4 for the team as Robbie Gibbs lines up in 8th position. Bo Albert will line up in 9th, making it back-to-back Evolution cars with Rick Kuznetsov rounding out the top 10 on the grid. Row 6 houses Richie Stanaway along with Matthew Bowler, who will both have to make progress through the field, with Joshua Horton in 13th position, and then you've got Tom Freer in P14. Wayne Burke will line up just behind him, 2 Synergy cars back-to-back, with Chris Coxhead, a great qualifying for him in 16th. He tends to do quite well around this track. Paul Young and Adam Hughes will house themselves on row 9, as the top 10 is rounded out, or the top 10 rows, rounded out by Jordan Ross and Ihan Kanguven, the Bathurst 12-hour champion. You've then got Michael Whiting and Brad Newman on row 11 with Damian Johnstone and Ross Rizzo 23rd and 24th. It's a 29-car field as Ben Morris will find himself with Jacob Reed a little bit down the order in at 26, just 1 second off the pace, leaving the final 3 drivers to be Jamie Dyke, Steve Jansen and Yuanji Lin will be the last driver in at position number 29 for 5-Star Motorsport. So a lot of work to do. It's a fast run towards turn number 1 out on circuit, and we are going to be seeing how important that run is and how you've got to try and fall into the best line possible. So now is going to be the big question maker in terms of how they all go and get it. So Can Brody Kostecki hold off the charge of some of the greatest sim racers that the world has to offer, or is he on a level that some drivers say is just unobtainable for those who try and chase? That's the questions that will need to be asked as the green flag drops and we get 30 laps underway. Kostecki bogs down through the second phase and Jared Phillip will pull up alongside as he looks to try and get himself through into the race lead. Cody D will shadow him through Duel corner to start and now tries to find a way through Tasman everywhere, in through 4th through 8th positions. They now run through in towards the southern loop. Phillip covering off his inside line. Brody Kostecki's got the launch that he wants, but it's as tight can be as they head to Casey Stoner.
Everyone's just trying to avoid sliding off the track there, coming out of turn 2. Matthew Bowler went backwards on the start. He's down 6 positions into 18th, but now we get to Miller, the hairpin. This is the overtaking opportunity. Sometimes it's like Monza turn 1. Sometimes there's one person that messes it up and it causes chaos, but everyone has gotten through there cleanly. Nice and impressive. Now down to Siberia. Plenty of side-by-side action still going on. Jake Maloney versus Bo Albert in the background as it looks like Kostecki and Phillip are skipping away already.
Well, that's what they want to do early. Cody D finds himself with a slew of Trans-Tasman cars behind him and Kuznetsov side by side with Robbie Gibbs going up into Lukey Heights and finding himself just maintaining that ahead. And look at the defensive tracks going through. Stanaway brute forcing his way down the inside. Wayne Burke looking like he has just seen a ghost. Robbie Gibbs as well, and that is wonderful work. Richie Stanaway knows you've got to be aggressive on the opening laps, and he shows it in spades.
Yeah, Stanaway up a grand total of 1 position from where he started, but he's absolutely going to bring out all the stops to get his way further up into the top 10. So the end of the first lap, most positions gained. Brad Newman up 4 positions to 18th. We still have Matthew Bowler down 8 positions now into 20th. That spin up of the wheels off the start really hurt him.
Yeah, but you can't afford to spin up these tyres. They're good for 3 to 4 laps. We've often noted in terms of how quick the initial pace is, and then the tyres plateau out. So we do expect that to be a rather important factor. Look at this angle and how close they are running, and they drive on through Stoner Corner. And again, we got a lot of 2 wide trying to put itself into play. Just behind top 3, that's Jordan Ross sneaking on through on Chris Coxhead. Paul Young finding himself in play. Now, just behind that, Hankan Guven leaves the door open for Brad Newman now. Try and sneak another little position up, and again, he finds his way through.
Absolutely he does. This is the onboard view here from Matthew Bowler. You saw that the initial phase of that start did not go well for him. These cars are very difficult to get off the line efficiently, and if you can manage to nail that, then that's half the job done when it comes to these races. Fortunately, he was able to keep the outside line in turn 1 nicely, but the racing is still going on as we go back to live pictures. Guven now trying to defend against Matthew Bowler as it's side by side between Chris Coxhead and Paul Young up ahead. Young on the outside. You get to the apex first in this corner, you usually do a good job of it. Get on the power a little earlier for Coxhead, but he's not far up enough. Paul Young's going to have a good run and get up the inside at turn 1.
Well, he's got the line, he's got the launch, but if he can get it side by side through turn 1, turn 2 can be a place where you can really fight for it. And look at the determination of Chris Coxhead on that outside line. Holds the inside, and still there's a search around the outside from Paul Young. Here comes Brad Newman, who sees the door open and dives for it on the inside, and he's got the launch that he wants. Now he's got to hold it here through turn 3 at Casey Stoner, and he'll then have the line here at turn 4 when he gets over to Jungle Jack Miller's corner. And now as they dive too wide, too deep on the brakes, it's Guven around the outside who tries to go through the Turkish driver, and there's a bit of door-to-door as they now hit off the exit over to Siberia. Guven this time on the inside compared to where he was a lap ago, and this time confirms the movement. Now wants the freight train, because here comes Matthew Bowler now trying to make his way back through.
Good job from Bowler here. He's managed to find his way back into the pack, and he'll be fighting up for positions. Paul Young's teammate Ben Morris in the background had a big slide at Siberia. I think there was contact there, and he's fallen to the back of this train. Now Young has to try and defend here from Bowler, who's looking really aggressive. He's on the racing line, and just up ahead of them, Coxhead running a bit wide in MG, and that's Newman through to the front of the pack.
Yep, and that's going to allow him now to be on the front and chasing down that next group because they've dropped a lot of time to Jordan Ross. And here's a replay on the back of Jacob Reed, a little half slide, costing a bit of time, and that's not what's necessarily wanted out there. I think that's not going to be the most ideal of scenarios to go out there and to push if you are Ben Morris. So he found himself in a lot of trouble, but in through turn one, this secondary group, so to speak, now will have to try and coalesce because they're all single file in that group all the way to the race lead in front. So to say this quite nicely, you've got a 15-car battle for the win at the moment.
Indeed you do. That whole exchange that we were seeing before was for 16th place. That shows you how close the racing is in this series, and it's fantastic to be involved here. As up the inside once again, that's Chris Coxhead trying to make way for Guven, and he's been shuffled back behind Matthew Bowler as well. So Bowler's already getting some redemption going for that poor initial start that he had.
Oh, that was close there. Contact between Paul Young and Adam Hughes. They're very nearly turning over the quarter panel. And just like that, Adam Hughes now keeps himself in place. Speak of which, there goes Damien Johnstone spearing across the grass. He 360s and rejoins.
Oh, that could have been disastrous. Hayshed is always a place where you're right on the ragged edge of grip. Fortunately, a lot of runoff there. It just looked like Johnstone was on the inside there. Michael Whiting couldn't really do much as Johnstone came back onto the track in front of him. It was just a little tag. They came in side by side. Johnstone on the inside comes off the curb, little bit of a touch, and off they both go.
Well, that is how simply put a spin can happen. Now we're at lap 5. We can actually talk a little bit of strategy here at the moment here, Reece, because I find it so interesting that you've got 4 Trans-Tasman cars, Madison Down, Brady Myers, Joshua Anson and Jake Maloney. Do you, in this situation, send one of your teammates to come in and pit early to throw something alternate to put one of your 4 cars up there in that leading battle?
Yeah, that's certainly something you're going to start thinking about. The pit window opens around about lap 8 and it goes all the way to lap 22. I think you'd be a fool to try and push it that far going all the way to lap 22 with the way these tyres degrade. But I think there's definitely a chance of getting yourself in the fight if you decide to come in at the very start of the window, and you can try and be the spanner in the works, so to speak, for Phillip and Kostecki up ahead.
Yeah, so that's going to be where the next challenge is. We go on board with Robbie Gibbs, and this is what you're starting to understand here. You are in the train, and look at how much gravel is being kicked up already through iRacing's debris refresh system. And this is going to mean that these drivers, from race to race that they go and they try and get this circuit down, they will have a state of understanding that this track is never truly going to be 100% out there compared to some of the other drivers out there or some of the other races that they do out there around this circuit. No 2 races anymore really here, Reece, can truly say they're even.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Phillip Island's still a very old school circuit with not much in the way of tarmac runoffs around here. So you need to be careful not to kick up too much gravel onto the track. Otherwise, you'll be compromising your grip through these very fast corners. You run over a little bit of dirt in the wrong spot and that is day done.
It certainly can be, and here is a Hankan Guven who is having to be uber defensive now through the southern loop because Matthew Bowler is not going to sit by idly and see this fall away. He was very, very aggressive, was Matthew, at the season opener at Watkins Glen, and he's looking for a little bit more of that, drafting his way through at Casey Stoner over to Miller Corner. He looks to the inside. Guven has gone a little deep in though, and he can just about diamond off the corner and get back off and away again. He's really having to work at the moment here as Hankan, and he is looking around here and he's seeing that the likes, of course, of Adam Hughes, Chris Coxhead are there, Paul Young, Jacob Reed, Jamie Dyke, Michael Whiting, all there. Now they've also got Ross Ringham, Steve Jansen, Brandon and Ben Morris. The entire back half of the train is all there and all wants to get through, and ultimately they are going to start finding it very difficult to make forward progress if you keep looking behind in the mirrors.
Indeed, and it's about at this point you start to think, well, should I just back off and look after the tyres for a bit of a longer stint, or do I look to go for the pits in the next couple of laps and try and get an undercut on everyone else, at least for a short time? Remember, the earlier you pit, the earlier the tyres are going to drop off and you'll suffer at the end. And if you've been racing a bit too hard in the opening laps, you might just lock yourself into that.
You might just do, and Robbie Gibbs is thinking about the way he's going to try and make this move on Richie Stanaway. It's one of those things where he needs probably about an extra half a tenth if he wants to unlock it and get exactly what he wants out of the pass, but the issue is he just can't put the power down quick enough. And as he heads over towards turn 3 at Casey Stoner, over towards Jack Miller at turn 4, this is the run he's been looking for here. He gets the launch down the inside, and he will leapfrog and get what he wants, blocks it up nicely on the middle of the apex and says, thank you, that is mine. And that was a must-make move, because if he was anything short of that, they would have lost contact with the likes of Rick Kuznetsov, who's there in 9th place.
Yeah, a little bit of clear air for Stanaway now. He can focus on his own lines instead of just trying to follow what the car in front is doing. The question is, in making that pass, has he burnt through a bit too much of the tyres? It's all about managing the aggression in these cars. And, you know, with the lack of downforce, once again, you have to be aggressive in some places in order to get the best out of these things. But this is just a textbook dive at Jack Miller corner. On the brakes just a little bit later, use the trail braking to get the car rotated in the middle of the corner, park it on the apex, and he was through. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah, it's a wonderful move, and one that he can smile about there, can Robbie Gibbs, in terms of his pass. And Chris Coxhead seems to be unable to avoid the battles out there here today. That's Jamie Dyke trying to find himself a chance to go through. This is the 22nd position. Michael Whiting finding himself there in the mix, and Chris Coxhead really has been shuffled on this lap of 36.7. He really has been, I would say, the bottom of the barrel, and that all down to the fact that he's had a tiny bit of contact at MG with Adam Hughes. And I tell you what, Chris Coxhead right now, I think, has been a little soft in this race and needs to just start giving a little bit back, because he's been a little passive.
Yeah, you can tell that aggression is the way of it. We're going to see exactly where this contact happened. That was a bit optimistic there from the 21 of Adam Hughes, who was alongside, managed to get Coxhead offline, and that is why Chris is now down 6 positions from where he started. And well, speaking of aggression, I think it might have to dial up at the front of the field as well, because Phil Sell is keeping Kostecki very honest. Cody Deeth has not quite been able to keep up with the top 2 here. He's now about 1.5 seconds behind the lead, and he's got that swarm of Trans-Tasman racing cars right behind him. A little slide on the exit of MG, maybe just pushing the throttle a little too hard. One of the great things about these cars is that you can slide them a little and be able to recover, but again, you can't afford to do it too much. You don't want to overheat those rears.
You really don't, and the Eclipse Sim Sport driver here is finding out what makes this tough in this racing, because that's a 34.2 on that lap. Madison down 0.2 quicker than him. Jared Filsell 33.6 was the fastest driver of anybody on that last lap. The gap now up at 1.4 seconds. We talk about a rubber band. If you get outside of a second, sometimes the rubber band just snaps and it becomes nigh on impossible to bring that gap back, and I think that's what we're seeing here, just the slow decay of a look for the victory for Cody Deeth & Co, as Brad Newman now finds himself on the defense here for the first time in a little bit. Ayhan Kanguven has now brought himself in, and we'll see what Ayhan San can do as he now looks to try and chase down with Matthew Bowler in tow. We'll see if there's a look at turn 4. It looks like there's definitely a pivot towards turn 4 at Miller corner, and all the room in the world given, and still it's a block pass. Here comes Bowler.
Good stuff. Matthew Bowler taking advantage, and Siberia here, a little bit of camber in this corner. It looks like Matthew Bowler's electing to try and go for the over-under on the exit here, but he isn't quite able to pick up the throttle well enough. Can't go side by side through Hayshed without someone having to back out of it. He's going to have to wait for MG now, but you see just how much that little bit of compromise has affected them, because Guven now a few car lengths ahead. That's a couple more car lengths that Bowler's going to have to make up. If he can get this move done, he can't.
No, he looked for the inside, but that was very wise from Brad Newman. He just extended his braking zone out and took about the middle of the road, and that was enough for him to just give enough room for Matthew Bowler to lunge, but still also give him enough turning rotation through MG to cover off that move. With Adam Hughes in the DPR car behind him, you start looking around and thinking, well, I need to start making some progress. I think some moves are important. Bowler there on the back, taking that toe, getting right up here along the Gardner Straight in towards Duel corner, but there's not much more than that can be done. Looking over towards turn 2, and they never move across that right-hand side as you traditionally see, because you can still carry the corner speed all the way on the inside here of the Southern Loop. It's something that's very unique to this circuit, a corner where you can just hug the inside of the circuit and take the path of least resistance without having to go all the way out to the wide section of the circuit. Here comes another lunge though.
Oh, can he get it done? Newman sees him coming. He tried to go wide, but there's contact, and everyone else is going to pile in there. That's Coxhead there, bringing the party to them. It looks like both of them managed to recover. Neither of them spun around, but that's a massive compromise there for both Bowler and Newman. Now down to 18th and 19th, and that's just going to get the battle even more intense from here. Oh, a little bit of a tech issue potentially there for Mr. Guven. Let's see what they can do from here. Gently does it up Lukey Heights and through to MG. You want to try and hug the inside through here too, because it'll put you on the right turn-in point for this hairpin at the end of the lap. But for the time being, it looks like not many passes being made. I do see a TTR car there going for a move though.
Yeah, that's Ross Rizzo through, along with Michael Whiting on Jacob Reed. He gets shuffled 2 places for it. It was so interesting to hear this over the radio because Matthew Bowler apologised and Brad said, no, that's just racing. We carry on, we continue. And there's the contact, and basically they come back across the middle of the circuit because they're just trying to get some drive away from the seat, and that's what brings the entire group together. And you now start to see that Brad Newman is still wanting a little bit more out there as Chris Coxhead tried the inside. Oh, he's got a bit deep. Now they're going to really start scrapping it out then for any piece of asphalt they can find. And Brad Newman just holds on here in his station as we're on lap 11 here of 30. Still no takers yet. Deciding to make the early call to dive into the pits. Here comes Chris Coxhead though. He'll go launching up the inside and he'll now try and get himself in. And you know, he'll hang him out like yesterday's washing, and it's a freebie for Paul Young.
Paul Young looking for moves for the last few laps, and he's finally getting them. Can he hold the outside around Siberia? Get on the power a little bit earlier? Not quite. Newman will hold on to the position coming into Hayshed. It's so difficult to try and make a move around here. You've got so many long corners where if you're on the outside, you're compromised, but then you might be able to come back on the inside of the next hairpin. But you need to be able to make sure that you're alongside before you can do that. So easy to lock the brakes in these things. Young gets into the back of Newman.
I think that's a little shock for the way that move came back at Siberia there from Paul Young. He looks around at that, and meanwhile, third position is getting really, really hot here as Cody D is basically the doorstop for the Trans-Tasman train to start walking its way up towards the front. They've dropped now back to almost 3 seconds off the race lead with Madison Down, Brady Myers, Josh Anderson and Jake Maloney all there, all hoping that they're trying to get through, and they're slowly starting to break off Bo Albert and Rick Kuznetsov from that group. We'll take a little look here at a replay. This is Yuanji Lin and Co, who find themselves through the final corner, and how close is this going to be off of the final section? Oh, what a save going on through. A little bit of side-to-side contact at one of the most loaded sections of circuit. It's so easy for that to go awry.
Absolutely, but very well held from both Yuan Lin and Ben Morris, battling for the final position in the race. It's awesome to see that every car that started the race is still running, but who knows how much longer that's going to last with how much they're getting the elbows out here.
Yeah, there really is a lot of focus here in this 19th and 20th place battle on. You've got to get the elbows out if you want the move, but the issue is they're all getting their elbows out, jostling for position, but someone's not opened up the doors essentially like it's a Black Friday sale. It's a case of these drivers are trying to make these moves here, Reese, and they're just not making any progress with it. We'll take another look at the SimSpeed replay. This is the throw down the inside, a bit of front to rear.
Yeah, it seems like that's what you have to do in order to try and make the moves here. You can't really just... Oh, yeah, okay, there we go. First taker on the pit stops, and it's none other than the highest I-rating driver in the field.
but he did this last time out as well. He took the early stop and it cost him late in the race. So Madison Down is doing it once again. He'll be the first one in. He'll be the guinea pig for everyone else to follow, and I'll be really interested to see what his lap times are going to look like, because he is not a million miles away after that pit stop from the back of this train.
Indeed, pit stop is complete now. 12.6 seconds in the box for Madison Down. He now has fresh tyres and enough fuel to get to the end on board of that car. So now we'll see exactly how the leaders respond to this. Now, I think that Kostecki and Phillip, they're in their own little bubble at the front of this field now, thanks to Cody Deeth forcing everyone back a little bit, proverbial cork in the bottle, as it were. So now I think Madison Down might be able to at least try and jump Cody Deeth and get ahead of him. Maybe try and battle with Kostecki and Phillip once they complete their stops. But the number 3 and the number 10 will be watching with bated breath to see what the times are like there from Madison.
Well, no pit stops then from the front 2 drivers out there. Nobody follows in behind. Everybody's going late on their strategy by comparison, and well, no doubts about that. There's one of the Fishy Motorsport cars making its launch on through. That is Michael Whiting through on Jacob Reed then, who always seems to find MG's corner. He can't quite get what he wants. In fact, it's not a move, it was a case of waiting. In comes Brad Newman. He's had enough of being bottled in with that secondary group. He's going to make that dive in towards the pits, and it's a single track pit lane as you jump in at Phillip Island, which means if you're anything short of perfect going through to try and get onto the brakes, you can easily find yourself in that wall on the right hand side, hitting the pit wall.
Yeah, indeed. Difficult pit entry here at Phillip Island. A very narrow entry lane as well, which you're taking at quite a rate of knots. Well, I think for Newman, oh, okay, change of position there. It looks like Albert getting by Kuznetsov for 7th there. Sorry, I was just going to say that Newman, probably a psychological thing as well. You know, if you're involved in a super huge fight, what you want to try and do is get yourself out of that and reset yourself. There you go. That's what caused all of that in the first place. Looks like a little bit deep there from Kuznetsov, and that allowed Albert past.
It was close. I tell you what, Rick Kuznetsov was throwing that one. That was a wild haymaker to try and make that happen, but ultimately you can only make hay while the sun shines, and that didn't quite go the way that that was planned. So it's going to have to be a little bit more patient out there. The wind direction has changed, by the way, from east to southeast, so that's going to slightly affect the braking zone markers that you've got around the circuit. You've got iRacing's weather system in full play at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so this track, expect it to drop a little bit as Jared Phillip gets the closest that he's been all race long to making that move on Brody Kostecki, and the groups continue to remain steadfast, and track position here at the halfway stage is important as Chris Coxhead covers off Brad Newman.
Yeah, seems like the majority of drivers here are going for a middle-of-the-road kind of pit stop, or even a little bit later. The tyres are lasting a little bit longer than I expected, which is interesting because the track temp has actually risen a little bit. It was about 35-ish in qualifying. It was 37 at the start of the race and down to 36 as there's more moves going on here. The number 6 of Rick Kuznetsov now having to deal with Robbie Gibbs as well.
Yep, so there's the launch down the inside. Bo's got to leave the room. He'll try and come back up and under. It's blocked. Rick Kuznetsov gets the pass. Keep an eye on the race lead battle. Madison Down was 1.1 seconds faster on that last lap than Brody Kostecki. Another lap like that, and he is in the fight for the race win.
Absolutely, that is the value of the undercut in these cars. The tyres right out of the box are so good, and you're able to get so much pace out of them early on. Make hay while the sun shines, as you say, is another view of this move here from Kuznetsov. Albert a little bit compromised there through the hairpin, a bit of a rub from Kuznetsov. That unsettled him, and then Rick's like, okay, in we go, and into Siberia gets the move done as it looks like Kostecki has decided to jump in from the race lead. He is joined by Bo Albert, 2 cars on pit lane at the moment. So Phillip was harassing Kostecki early on. We'll see if there's a bit more space between them when Phillip makes his stop.
Well, I think this is quite telling here that Brody Kostecki's looking at all elements of the race here. He's thinking, well, I don't just have to worry about you, Jared. I've got to worry about the likes, of course, of one Mr. Madison Down. And this is going to be close on the pits. And in fact, Madison's got his jump. Madison's jumped him.
Yeah, Madison jumping past Brody Kostecki. Brody had a second slower pit stop than Madison Down. That's another factor in this, and Down is just carrying that pace forward. Well, now he's ahead of the former race leader. Now the only question is, where is Phillip going to filter out in all of this?
Well, 1 second is going to be a very important second to find. Remember, Madison's going to have to be defensive. We'll take another look here on the SimSpeed replay. Just flying out after the short shoot run. Easy as you like from Madison Down. And here is where he's going to have to use the mark of the number 1 out there at the moment. He has got to play defensive against the 2023 Supercars champion and someone of the caliber of Jared Phillip, potentially, if he decides that he's got to cover off the moves. But Jared is going to run the tank out as he stays out, and there's thoughts. Oh, Cody Deep, that's a late call to dive in for the pitch, and he's in the grass trying to save it. Can he get it slowed on? I think he just about managed it.
Oh, just about. I'm not seeing any black flag, no speeding in the pit lane from Mr. Deep there. He managed to get in just ahead of Brady Myers. They're joined by Tom Freer and Adam Hughes. Most cars I've seen on the pits so far, and I think we're going to be seeing a raft of pit stops in the next couple of laps as those tyres have finally given up.
Yeah, and I think all those pit stops are going to be important in terms of where they are going to get themselves back out. They only just leave the pits now, do Myers and Deek, and Brady Myers has jumped Cody Deek in the box. Deek a little bit slower, but that's the gap they've got to try and chase down, and Brody Kostecki has pulled that margin in to 0.4 of a second. So now Madison is going to have to hope that those couple of laps that he spent in front, he can cover it off. There's a bit of side-by-side as they now start battling it out. That's Josh Anderson looking at this now. Jake Maloney wanting to give himself a little bit of track position for the next stop.
Aussie Racing Cars champion Joshua Anderson, Supercars champion Brody Kostecki gets up the inside of Madison Down and takes what we think might be the effective race lead back. We still haven't seen Jared Phillip make a move for pit lane yet, but surely it will come on this lap.
Well, that was one of the easier ones there. Madison Down, knowing he was beaten on the brakes, isn't going to make too much of a fuss here with Brody Kostecki. And speaking of the devil, car 10 will dive into the pits. Jared Phillip now looking to make his pit stop, and how far back he comes out in comparison is going to be a huge port of call. It will now give the race lead to Jake Maloney here as into the pits comes Robbie Gibbs, Josh Anderson, Richie Stanaway is in, and so too is Jordan Ross making his pit stop. So now as Brody Kostecki runs his way through the final corner, we'll see what it's going to be like on the stop for Jared Phillip now. Over 10 seconds and he comes off the jacks now. 12.8, he stays stationary, and he will come out not just by one, he'll come out behind both.
Oh yeah, that didn't go too well for Phillip. Those extra laps spent on those old tyres while Kostecki and Down were taking advantage of the pace. Look at that from Kostecki, 32.5 fastest lap. That is basically qualifying pace that we're seeing from Brody right now.
Yeah, some wonderful, wonderful racing here, and everybody is pushing up to the highest possible standards, and now it's about who's got what underneath them on their boots, who's going to be pushing to get what they need. Someone like Brady Myers would love to just latch onto the back of Jared Phillip and go at it here for the end of the race. Madison Down is desperately trying to hold on as he did 1 week ago at Watkins Glen, and they've also got drivers like Ben Morris, for example, who's just got out of the way there of Brody Kostecki. Knows he's on a different strategy, and that was, believe it or not, a move for position. We talk about Ayrton Senna and yellow helmet. What colour helmet's Brody wearing?
Absolutely, man. Brody is just piling it into these corners now. He wants to try and take advantage. He knows that Down might try and come back at him if he doesn't get that gap up. He wants to try and push Madison into burning through his tyres a little more and secure victory from there. Maloney, Kuznetsov and Burke came into the pits, and they are going to be joined here by Jamie Dyke and Michael Whiting. The 7th and 8th place cars at the moment, as Horton and Young are going very long. They're the only the 3 cars still remaining yet to get into the pits. Horton, Young and Jacob Reed. They are pushing it as far as they'll go.
Absolutely. They are looking at this going, we are going to want some time up at the front of this field. We'll get the best tyres out there and charge for it. There is Rick Kuznetsov. He comes out to the pit. well down the order there, and he'll be just ahead of Richie Stanaway and Wayne Burke, who also came into the pits with him, but he'll have the tyres to attack Robbie Gibbs and Josh Anderson and the co, who are all there in front. So that's the chase. -3 for Richie Stanaway. Those -3, of course, will be those who are P1, P2 and P3. Madison down, losing out. Jared Philsell down the inside. These two have overtaken each other time immemorial.
Yep, they've battled against each other in hosted and official races for many, many years now, and they definitely know what to expect of each other. Philsell carried the throttle a little more through Stoner and translated that into a run up the inside at Miller, and he has secured effective second place. But the problem for him is he's now 2 seconds behind Brody Kostecki. He was faster than Brody in the early stages of the race, but with everyone on different life tyres at the moment, does he have it in him to try and catch back up?
Well, in comes Josh Horton from the race lead. Paul Young and Jacob Reed are going to stay out a little bit longer. There's a little look at your tyre strategy on who's done what. So Kostecki in on lap 15. He's got 2 lap older tyres than Jared Philsell. Madison down 5 lap older tyres by comparison. Myers and Deeth came in on 16. Bo Albert in on 15 with Brody Kostecki. And Jay Maloney, probably the freshest of the lot, came in on 18. So he's expected to be the big mover at this moment.
There goes Philsell taking the fastest lap, and here comes the battle here between Albert and Maloney. This is basically
Maloney
1
through.
lap old tyres versus 4 lap old tyres, and the younger tyres certainly win. This is how he made the move.
Yeah, getting the launch then off of the final corner, using the slipstream on Bo Albert and jumping through on the inside. That was as comfortable as you like there. Jake Maloney getting the pass that he wants, and there's a little bit of issues there as now Brady Myers finds his way through on Madison Down. This early strategy for the second straight week really has not paid off for Madison Down, and here's why, because he is just a sitting duck into what is Jack Miller corner.
Yeah, indeed. Much fresher tyres there for Mr. Myers, and through he goes. So question is, will Madison still even finish on the podium at this rate? He's basically off the effective podium now, and he'll have to try and find something in the last few laps here. We only have a third of this race still to go. Jacob Reed now has Brody Kostecki for company. He's going to say, all right, mate, I'm done. My tyres are done. And into the pits I'll go for some fresh ones.
But it still means that Paul Young leads this race, but Kostecki is hunting him down at the moment, knowing that he does need to come in and make a pit stop. That gap down from what was 2 seconds is now 1.3 seconds now between Jared Philsell and Brody Kostecki. I wonder if there was a little bit of hold up there as Jake Maloney now sets the fastest lap of the race as he's on the hunt for Cody Deeth and Madison Down. And Madison, again, watch out, it's turn 4, you've got a car behind you. I think we've seen this script play out over the last 2 to 3 laps, and I think we might see it again if Cody Deeth in the Eclipse Sim Sport car has anything to say about it here. He's going to find himself in behind, looking over towards turn number 4, and he's not going to be in a position where he can capitalise on it, but he gets right up to the bumper.
Yeah, Madison carried the throttle a little more and was able to keep the position there as the number 6 Rick Kuznetsov passes Robbie Gibbs into the very same corner. Kuznetsov with a lap fresher tyres, and Stanaway here is looking to get the elbows out, getting past Wayne Burke and through at Siberia. You really get a sense for the camber of that corner from that camera angle, and took great advantage of it.
Well, they've got the very fast Josh Horton behind him, so that's going to be worth keeping in mind. Paul Young just waiting for a way to go through. Is in the background. Whoa! Great dive by Cody Deeth.
Oh.
He gets the pass done on Madison Down, and he catches him napping ever so slightly at MG corner. Look at this up over the top of the hill. He just waits and waits, and he throws it to the inside and goes from a long way back to make the pass.
Lukey Heights is another one of those corners where if you carry the throttle a little more on the exit, you can shorten the braking zone, you can dive up the inside and get the position. That's exactly what Cody Deeth wanted to do. Paul Young pits, and that is the field cleansed, as looks like we're getting a replay here on Stanaway and Burke. Was there contact between them? No, it was just a nice dive there by Burkey to get back past Richie.
Yeah, that's an easy move at MG, and one that will be full of smiles. 13.3 Paul Young in the stop, and he'll fall way down the order then as he falls outside the top 25 after going very long in terms of his stop. So Deeth finding his way through, had to take a double take through the corner, and that actually brings Madison down back to the inside of Cody then to try and get the pass done, and ultimately can't find a way through at Siberia, but important battling there. Gap down now to just 7/10 of a second between Kostecki and Phillip. Phillip with the tyre advantage, and this is important with 9 laps to go. Every 10th that Jarrett can get is a boon. Right now, every 10th that Brody can find is a bane. Speaking of banes, Tom Freer has found himself the bane of the inside of turn 4 at Jack Miller. He'll not be pleased.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like he did that all on his own, just lost it under the brakes. The rear's locked ever so slightly, potentially compression lock on the downshift. Very easy to do in these cars, and no one else was involved in that one. Tom Freer only has himself to blame.
Yeah, he'll be very upset with that. He doesn't like locking it up very often, and when he does, it's a case that he'll look at himself and go, that was not what I was planning. There is Cody Deeth in the number 19 Eclipse car at the moment, 4.2 seconds off of the race lead. He was fighting for the race lead 1 week ago, but sometimes when you've got a long championship like this, you're thinking about where can I get the points, because not everyone's going to race every single week, and if he can continue to get top 5 finishes, he'll be in with a shot at the championship, and that's what he's looking at, I would say, early doors. This is a championship push that he's got going on right now, and this 4th place will be very happy with the way he's driving.
Yeah, he certainly will. What he has to keep an eye out, though, for is the rear end in that braking zone there. That's where he potentially had a chance at losing the position last lap. What I've noticed as we see another move here, Josh Horton now getting past Stanaway. Richie's starting to drop back. He's on all the tyres in these cars. He'll get the position back for now, but I don't know how much longer he can hold on to that. What I've noticed about Deeth is that he's very aggressive on the rear end. We saw those little micro slides early on in the race. We saw the rear end kicking out under the brakes. He is really wanting that rotation, which, as I said at the top of the show, you do want at this circuit, but if you push it a little too hard, you will suffer. Still got 8 laps to go. Need to look after those tyres.
Yeah, it's about making sure that you bring them home. It's very much like you've got Gran in the back and she's got a crock pot full of gravy. You very much have got to be delicate and gentle every time you go around this track. 4/10 of a second now the margin between Brody Kostecki and Jared Phillip. They now start to close that gap even further. 2/10 over that last lap, fastest lap difference of 0.04 of a second. Jared Phillip has been at the top of the mountain in a supercar here in iRacing more times than you can count on his hand. He is so good when it comes to this style of racing, and Brody Kostecki may be one of the few equals that he can find, and he is currently looking at how do I get this pass done.
Well, it's take 2, really. They were battling like this at the start of the race, and now Phillip has a chance of getting through. Kostecki had to have a couple of goes at the steering into the hairpin that time. I think his tyres are starting to fall off himself. Well, now more moves happening. That is Kuznetsov getting past Bo Albert, but not without a bit of hip and shoulder. And Albert will continue on, as will Robbie Gibbs just behind. Nice exchanges of position happening here.
Yeah, they are all starting to find their paces again. Robbie Gibbs has done well to get onto the back of this with Bo Albert. Rick Kuznetsov seeing Josh Anderson then fall a little bit behind the 8 ball, so to speak. So they're all together and trying to work on where can you go. And this is quite interesting. So you've got Josh Anderson who's keeping the group behind. You've got Maloney who's quicker than Madison down trying to go and find a way through. And then you've got Brady Myers who's the leading Trans-Tasman car at the moment, trying to stay somewhat in range of these drivers 3 seconds down the road. He'll be there to capitalise if something happens between them. Small little kick up on the exit of the final corner from Jared Phillip, and this is the plateau that we're talking about. 2.5 of a second now the gap, 6 laps left. When do you pounce if you're Jared Phillip?
Yeah, that is the question. I mean, there is a good difference in the tyres here, 2 laps. It doesn't seem like much, but it's worth a lot in these cars. And look at him, he's right on the back of Kostecki here. Has to try and nail the throttle coming out of Southern Loop, then pick up the throttle through Stoner. You have to lift just a little bit, I think, at this point in the race. He's not far up enough to have a go at the hairpin. I think he's just biding his time.
I think he's waiting either A, for a mistake out of a world champion, or he's looking around at it going, you know what, I just know I've got it within me to make this move, but I'm going to find it at the point where I know that I can get this launch sorted. I know that I can find this pass. That's maybe what he's thinking about at this moment here with 5.5 left in this one, through the Hayshed, up over the top at Lukey Heights, and maybe down at MG is a place, but again, there's just that one car length between them that's saying no. He's getting slightly wider in the mirrors there. He's definitely giving Brody Kostecki a challenge.
Yeah, it's all about the psychological advantage. If you can move around a little in your rival's mirrors, try and distract them, that is one extra advantage that you have. But what I'm noticing here is Kostecki's he's taking a bit more care of the rears, I think. He does kick up the rear a little bit out of the final corner there, but when it comes to acceleration out of the slow corners, Kostecki has the edge over Philcell, and that's where I think Jared needs to try and change things up, needs to try and get a better exit somehow, somewhere.
Well, can he find it? Because he's got a great launch here through Duel corner. It's not going to be quite there at the southern loop here at turn 2. You're always trying to prioritise the exit, the slight diamonding through. You can see the marble build-up there on the outside as everyone has been throwing themselves in. 29 starters, 29 still running, and this might be the chance that Jared Philcell's been looking for. Goes over looking to the right-hand side, but he's out of it early. Here, he still doesn't want to quite make that move. He's showing that he's got the pace that he can launch it if he wants. I think he's worried that if he makes the move, Kostecki's just going to wait on him.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that I talk about all the time in broadcasts. That's another position lost there for Josh Anderson. Kuznetsov has managed to find his way through to 7th here with some beautiful aggressive dives over the last maybe 10-something laps. Just a really good run there from the number 6, and now he has clear air ahead of him. He can try and get away. But yeah, this is a situation for the leaders as we see how Kuznetsov made the dive.
Just a mistake.
Looks like, yeah, a mistake from Anderson, just too deep. Very easy error to make. But yeah, you want to try and make your move at the last possible moment. You don't want to give your rival any chance to fight back unless you have a clear pace advantage, which Jared Philcell doesn't have.
No, and this is the key. The tyres plateau. The longer he waits, the tougher it becomes. Richie Stanaway has himself a mirror full of Josh Horton, who's trying to get himself through and gain an extra place. I was expecting Horton to be a lot more aggressive, but when you're fighting up against Richie Stanaway, there is a case of a little bit of starstruckness out there, and Stanaway continues now, goes all the way over to defensive track and hopes that he's going to find himself in play. Here comes the look at turn 1. It's just not quite there because you can hold the pace through that opening section. Any look at turn 2, answer to that is going to be no. Can't quite get himself into position to make that move a reality. So again, patience having to prevail for all of these battles inside the top 15.
Yeah, you're managing the car, you're managing the tyres, managing your pace as well. You've got to focus on that as much as everyone around you. And if you make one single error, you can lose a position or possibly more. That's what Josh Anderson's probably thinking right now. Got the 2 Mustangs behind him there. And Bo Albert and Robbie Gibbs will take advantage if there's one more little slip-up like Anderson had on the last lap.
Well, every single mistake is exemplified and I would say exacerbated when it comes to the final few laps of the race, because you've got no time to recover it. Nose to tail, almost pushing him through the corner is Jared Philcell. He's almost toying with him at the moment, saying to Brody Kostecki, a driver of his caliber, that I don't think you're quick enough, mate. I'm going to try and find my way through, and I am going to just needle and needle and needle until you break, all the way to the left-hand side of the circuit, trying to break some toe, heading along the Gardner in towards Duel, and still there is nothing there for Jared Philcell.
Did you see the rear end of Philcell's car through the final corner? He was sliding that thing. It was very subtle, but he was pushing as hard as he could for a great exit, and he's going to do the same thing here. You've got to be smooth coming out of Southern Loop. You can dip a wheel into the grass and unfortunately get yourself around, but this is where Philcell could make the move on the final lap potentially, but Kostecki, you can see Philcell's rattling him now. Kostecki is on the defensive.
He took the middle of the road there. He realised that I actually might have to cover it this time. I can't afford to just sit back all the while, and all the way they're battling. They're still pulling out a gap, mind you, to Brady Myers, who's got full bore on it, who's still a tenth slower. So they're able to battle at at this rate and still gain time out there over the course of the lap. Over the top of Lukey Heights they go once again and continue on their charges. But still, Jared Philsell is the one who just has to sit and find the right place to make the move.
Coming up on 2 laps to go. This is where the money is made. Who gets the better exit out of the penultimate corner here? The battle's still going on for 4th here between Cody Deeth and Jake Maloney. Madison down another couple of seconds back. He's not a factor in this battle at the moment. The first driver to pit. But man, those tyres are 16 laps old now for Madison down. He's going to be struggling all the way to the end here. Just got to hope that he doesn't get caught up by Kuznetsov and Anderson, who just pop into the frame there at the bottom. Meanwhile, Kostecki and Philsell through turn 1. You can see that Philsell's picking up the throttle just a little earlier coming through Duin, and he just tries to keep to the inside in Southern Loop, but that crest in the road there, as you come through the corner, you have to run a little wide to straighten up the exit for the best possible run to the hairpin.
Been a very windy day here at Phillip Island, and you've got the greatest showcase of battling. It's Mustang versus Chevrolet as they run through. That's deep! That's deep! That's deep! Brody Kostecki somehow holding it on. They're going to be side by side as they head to Siberia. Is this an up and under attempt coming along? Perfect driving by Kostecki to hold it. There's a bit of bump as he slides on through. Oh, that was a warning shot!
Oh, that was intense there. Kostecki just a little too deep in the corner and got on the marbles. Fortunately, with the nature of the track in that place, you're able to keep the inside at Siberia if you play your cards right. But you can tell a move is coming for Jared Philsell.
Oh, it really is, and that's really defensive by Kostecki. Oh, he taps him! He taps him! And now Kostecki is getting hit left and right. It's jab after jab after jab by Jared Philsell on the offensive, and we will have 1 lap to go here at Phillip Island. A showdown between one of the legends of sim racing and one of the legends of supercars out there. Kostecki versus Philsell. Here we go over towards turn 1. Now we expect 4 to be the place where the big move happens. And Philsell now running himself through the opening corner here is now going to start thinking about how do I line this up at turn 2. He's a little later on the brakes as he goes through, and Kostecki has to take 3 or 4 little jabs to the brake to get rotation through the middle of the corner. Now Kostecki, do you have enough to try and run away here at turn 4, the best place to make a move? Philsell has been waiting to make this pass, and he thinks about the lunge, he thinks about the send, and they're both going to go a little bit deep. Who's got the better rotation? It is Kostecki just, and it's only just because they've barely got anything between them as they head over towards Siberia corner. And now the second half of the lap is about drive off the exit here, because this is where the setup happens all the way through the hayshed up towards Lukey Heights, and MG is the last great place for Jared Philsell to find that move. Has he got anything up the top of the long off-camber left-hander and then back down the hill again? The almightiest of sends may be needed, but Brody Kostecki, middle of the road, can he shove him out of the way? No, he can't. Jared Philsell is stuck. He is stymied here at Phillip Island with 1 corner to go. Now drive is all important. Brody Kostecki has been having to hold and hold and hold all race long. And you know what? Pressure makes diamonds, and Brody Kostecki might be the shiniest of the lot. He wins at Phillip Island.
What a finish. What a final lap. That is a battle between 2 greats right there, and that's what you can get in the iRacing Supercars Series. Brilliant stuff between our winners as the rest of the field come across the line. It looks like Josh Horton was able to keep Richie Stanaway behind him in the end. The battle's still going on here between the 2 cars here. It's once again Mustang versus Camaro. The number 16 trying his best, Tom Freer, to keep Michael Whiting behind him. It's a drag race to the line between them and squeezing towards the wall. Almost contact, but it works out in Tom Freer's favor after what was a bit of a terrible race for him, honestly, losing those positions like he did, but redeeming himself with that great defense.
Absolutely fantastic racing, and that is what we have got week in and week out. With after just 2 weeks, we've had 2 sensational battles at the front of the field, and I tell you what, car 3 will be very, very happy with that, because that was a #1 performance from him. Brody Kostecki getting the job done and doing so by just 0.2 of a second over the line ahead of Jared Phillip, with Brady Myers rounding out the podium, just unable to keep up with the early race pace. Cody Deeth will take a 4th place finish. That's definitely not bad for what he's hoping for in long game intentions, as Jake Maloney and Madison Down end up 5th and 6th. Madison Down with the early call to dive into the pits, not working out for the 2nd straight race. Rick Kuznetsov will finish off in 7th ahead of Josh Anderson in 8th, leaving Bo Albert in 9th and Robbie Gibbs to round out the top 10 of the field. Over the page then to page 2, where Wayne Burke and Joshua Horton find themselves in 11th and 12th, with Richie Stanaway a little bit disappointing for him in 13th, but he'll look to bounce back in the next rounds of the championship, with Jordan Ross and Ihan Kanguven there in 15th position overall. It's then Matthew Bowler and Adam Hughes 16th and 17th, with Chris Coxhead in 18th, along with Ross Rizzo and Jacob Reed finding himself inside the top 20 with his drive a gain of 6, the biggest in the field here today. All drivers found themselves at the checkered flag, which is always amazing to see, as Brad Newman and Jamie Dyke were 21st and 22nd. It's then following Tom Freer, Michael Whiting and Paul Young, with Jamie Johnstone having his 360 moment earlier on in the race ahead of Yuan Ji Lin, Steve Jansen and Ben Morris, the last driver there for Phase 4 Motorsport. He finds himself down at the very back of the field. But Reese, bring on next week, because I tell you what, 2024 has had this wonderful end to this year in terms of great racing, and it's a track that pretty much nobody's got a true understanding of next as they come up, because they'll be heading to the Saquita de Navarra speed circuit, and this is one which you look at on paper and go, well, how does this fit the iRacing C-Class Supercar?
I think it fits it pretty well. I did a hosted event at the medium layout of this circuit, and it suits these cars fantastically. It's got that street circuit vibe with the stop-start middle sector and plenty of braking zones to try and get your run on for that extra position. It's a beautiful circuit, works with these cars wonderfully, and I'm looking forward to next week. It's going to go off.
Well, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. You can catch that, of course, on iRacing and with us at SimSpeed TV on January 6th. It'll be at 10:15 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, 9:15 p.m. AEDT, and you are definitely going to want to jump in and see that. On top of that, just a few reminders. It is the iRacing Winter Sale. It still goes on all the way to January 5th, and of course we've got some brilliant action there. You can still give the gift of sim racing this year and into the next year by getting 50% off of any new iRacing membership by visiting iRacing.com/holiday sale. It is also worth noting you got action there on the bottom right, for example, like the Grid Finder 240, which will be coming up from the Sebring International Raceway as IMSA action continues with us on iRacing. So you definitely want to jump in and give a little bit more as you go on. But from the entire team who's brought it to you here today, from Jay Kennedy and of course from Reese Gardner, who's been alongside me, I've been Jake Sperry. That is what sim racing is all about. Two incredible racing talent going at it there. A legend of sim racing like Jared Phillip, showing that he has got almost all the tools to come up with victory when he chooses to, but he runs into one brick wall. He runs into one Brody Kostecki, and I tell you what, there's a reason why he's a Supercars champion. It's because he can pull off results like that. We will see you in the new year, ladies and gentlemen, as we head over to Navarra.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. visit iRacing.com.